Hello, friends. My name is Deepak, and I'm a tax code advisor. Today, I'm going to share a very interesting conversation I had with a client who thought that they are making all the right moves. They had a good retirement set. They almost had $700,000 sitting in a money market fund. They also own two properties, and they also have with social security and some of the other retirement funds they had coming in, they have almost $7,000 a month income, and everything is paid off, so they didn't have to worry about anything. There was no debt um, involved whatsoever, and they were chilled out. They were like, there's nothing that we need to worry about in our retirement years. And as we start talking, the cracks started to emerge in their retirement planning. So that's why it's very important that we speak with a professional and get their opinion, and you don't have to act on what they say. You don't have to go and, buy a product or do something like that, but you definitely want to listen in and see what might be going on. So I'm going to be sharing their stories, and maybe you can learn a thing or two from that story. Maybe that will be more relevant to you. Or if you want to talk about yourself, you can always set up a free discovery call with me, and we can look at your entire financial picture. We can take a look, what's happening with your real estate, what's happening with your business, what's your tax situation. If you want to open up a business or sell a business or something like that, we can definitely help you. But today, let's talk about this story. So I already gave you the facts, but I'll give you some more facts so that way you have a better understanding of what's going on. So both a couple are in their 70s, early 70s, and they own two properties, and they have $700,000 sitting in retirement plan with Social Security and pension, almost $7,000 of income. And then on top of that, they have rental income because they own two properties. They live in one property, and they've been renting the second property. So that's their financial situation. In addition to that, in last couple of years, well, I shouldn't say last couple of, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, they bought two insurance policies, or I should reframe it and say somebody sold them two insurance policies. So that's their financial situation right now, and we're going to break it down and show you where the cracks are. So let's talk. Let's start with the money in stock market. They have $700,000 sitting in stock market. So first question is, what are they doing with the money? And the answer is nothing. Then we're not doing anything. We have our son-in-law manage it. So I asked him exactly, what do you mean by manage it? What exactly is he doing with it? And the answer came out at the end of the day was that everything is sitting in money market fund. Now, money market funds have been doing very well for last year or so, but are they going to continue to do that well in next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? Most likely not. I mean, interest rates are already starting to drop, and they will continue to come down a little bit. So I don't think the money market fund's going to do as well. But bigger question is, what do they plan to do with this money? They want to use it for their retirement. They don't want to use it for their retirement. What's the situation with that? And the answer was they don't plan on using any of those funds. Most likely they're going to pass it on to their kids. So that's why they let the kids manage it. But obviously, kids don't see it that way. Kids still think that it's parents' money. That's why they're being conservative. They don't want to mess around with their money and lose it. So I give a lot of kudos to these kids being very cautious with parents' money, because who knows, maybe parents think that they don't need the money today, but they might ask for it, a couple of years down the road. So that's situation number one. Situation number two is they have two real estate, one about 3 miles, about 200 miles away, roughly, from where they live currently, and they've been managing it, but now in their 70s. So I asked them, would your son or daughter would be willing to manage it for you going forward? And the answer was no. Big no, absolute no. The kids don't want to touch the property. They don't want to manage it. Nothing they want to do with it. So the question came up, well, should we consider perhaps selling it? So I'm like, look, again, the question is, what do you want to do with the money? Let's say you sell the property, you get some gain. What are you going to do with it? Do you want to use that money to do something else, or do you want to give it to your kids? What do you want to do? And the answer is, well, we really want to give it to kids. I'm like, if you want to give it to kids, what makes more sense is that you just keep the tenants and let the kids inherit the money. That way they get step up basis and most likely avoid whatever capital gain taxes you might have on that property at this point. Because the property is free and clear, they've been owning it for the last 30 years, so there's no debt, there's always a rental income, so it's cash flow positive, and it makes sense for them to inherit it. From a kid's point of view, kids don't care one way or the other. They don't care whether they get the money or not. They're well to do, so they don't really need access to that money anyway. So we said, okay, tell me a little bit about your situation. Where are you living right now? They're living in a house they purchased almost 30 years ago, and they rented that house for almost 15 years or so, and they moved out of that house. Um, before actually they were living in that house before they rented it, and then they moved out of the house. They lived in a different place for almost 15 years, and now that they're retired, they came back and started living in the house. So I'm like, okay, is this the place you like? Is this the place you want to live for the rest of your life? And the answer came back was not really. I'm like, where do you guys want to move? Well, like, well, we don't want to move. It's just that this is a two-story house. So we're not able to use most of it. We only use one bedroom and the living room and the kitchen. That's it. We don't really get to enjoy the rest of the house. Only time the house gets used is when kids are here, and that's like once a year. So we don't really like it, but the house is already paid off, and we are free and clear. So what should we do with the housing at this point? So that was the scenario with the real estate. And then on top of that, they have nice little social security and pension between husband and wife together. They almost have $7,000 a month coming in, which is more than enough to cover all of their expenses. They are not heavy travelers. They do travel here and there, but don't travel a lot. They have a good insurance policy because of the work these people did. So medical expenses are not that big of a problem either. So if you think about it, in today's world, $7,000 actually for someone who have no debt, depending upon your lifestyle, the answer might be different. But for them, that's more than enough. They don't really need any extra money. In matter of fact, what parents wants to do, they want their entire net worth over the whatever funds they have in money market, as well as the both properties to be inherited by the kids, which makes sense. Now there, and then on top of that, they had two insurance policies that they were paying premiums for. So let's talk about insurance, and then we'll talk about some of the issues that I found. So how did they got into this insurance part? So obviously, somebody came to them and they say, "Look, we can provide you $100,000 insurance policy for $300 a month. So if something happens to you, your family gets $100,000, and the idea is that family can use that $100,000 to pay for funeral or whatever expenses they might have." That was the thought process. And these folks bought into it. They said, okay, that's not bad. So that's their overall financial situation. They don't, kids are well to do. They don't need anything else. And you have the entire picture at this point. So let's break down some of the key issues that we found, and maybe this might be helpful to you. So first thing first, we said let's start with the insurance because you're paying that $300 a month. Do you have a copy of that policy that can show me the total premiums that you have paid into the policy? I want to see the death benefit. I want to see the cash accumulation into the policy, and any other details. So they were actually good enough to have a copy of that policy with them, so I was able to review it. Most of the time when I ask that question, people go like, "What?" So please, if you're coming for a consultation and you have some sort of insurance policy, have a copy of that policy, whether electronically or physically, because I think I can add so much more value by reviewing that for you right there, right then. So when I looked at the policy, what I found was, first of all, there was no cash accumulation value in that policy whatsoever. Second thing I found is that the premium was $300, but only for the first 15 years. This was next year going to be their 16th year, and the policy premiums will change from $300 to $3,500 a month. going forward. And like I said, the policy is still $100,000, and there's no cash accumulation value whatsoever. It's just a pure $100,000 death benefit. So my first question to clients was, is okay, maybe when you purchased the policy, maybe you felt 100,000 was a big chunk of money. The question today to ask is, what do you feel? Do you feel that you have enough net assets that you don't have to worry about this 100,000, or do you still feel that you need to give your kids $100,000 to take care of your final expenses? And they go like, "What are you talking about? Now we have $700,000 in value. We have two properties. I mean, that's a lot of stuff we're leaving for kids. Why do this $100,000?" I'm like, "You're absolutely right. I mean, if you have all the assets, you feel financially secure, which you are. You have no debt. You have two properties. Essentially, you're self-insured. So there's no reason for you to be paying $3,000 a month for next 15, 20, 30 years. Use that money on yourself. you know Maybe take an extra vacation, or buy something for your grandkids, or do whatever you want to do. Why waste in the insurance cost? It's not like an investment. It's not growing or anything like that. So I'm like, but just hypothetically speaking, let's just do a simple math. Let's assume that you can earn 5% in market. That's what you're earning in money market. So do you think that you can earn at least 5%? And the client says, yeah, I think we can earn 5%. I'm like, if we do the math over the 20 years, if you take the same money and you just put it in something that earns you 5%, that would be roughly $120,000. So, and if you average just like the way the market earned, let's say, um, 10%, then that would be almost $200,000. So do you still want to give that money away to insurance company? So I think that is one issue that I see again and again when I'm talking to clients, is that we don't realize when to have an insurance and when not to have an insurance. You have a bigger insurance need when you don't have an assets, when you don't have income that can take care of your family in case something happens to you. But at a certain point, when you have built up that income, when you have built up those assets, you are self-insured. So there's no reason for you to be spending money on transferring the risk. You would rather take that money and use it for something productive. But remember, the money that you give to insurance, it's gone. It's not coming back. It's basically you transfer the risk to them. So in this particular case, I think the client is better off using the money for what they want, because they feel they don't really have any need for insurance at this point. So that's almost $3,500 per year savings for them. Second concerns I have is, even though $7,000 income is just fine for them, but if these people were to live for another, you know, 20 years, we might have a little bit of trouble there, which is also not a problem because they have these two properties. One they're living in, which they're not so happy with, and the second one is a rental property. And that rental income will obviously appreciate with the inflation, and that should take care of them in later part of their life. But the biggest challenge I see there is that their kids don't want to take care of that property. So they need to really have a serious conversation with their kids. What are we going to do? Like, maybe they don't want to do it. Maybe the arrangement is that, look, as long as we can manage it, we'll manage it. But at some point, you have to manage it. That's the reality. At some point, kids would have to manage that property, because they're rentals. They might have problems, and who knows what state of mind you will be 20 years from now, 15 years from now, what your health condition look like. So you need to really have a serious conversation with kids and get them on board. If they don't want to come on board, then we need to dig some numbers and kind of figure out, does it make sense to sell it or do something else with that property. So that way you don't have to deal with that management issue, because that is an issue. So if kids don't want to deal with it, although I prefer that kids inherit the property, that way they get step up basis in taxes, and it's like the best financial situation. But if they don't want to manage it, they don't want to manage it. There's not We can't force them to manage it. So that's the another serious loophole I found in their overall planning. So one, we have the insurance where they were wasting money. Second one is this property that the kids don't want to manage. Then the third problem they had is that they live in this property that they are not happy with it. Now, client thought that they can actually sell this property and perhaps buy another one because they will have a 500K exemption. But again, that's not true because that would only be relevant if it was your primary home. Client has used it as an investment home for 15 years. That means they also took a lot of depreciation, which they would have to pay back at a 25 up to 25% capital of ordinary income tax rate. They're in lower tax brackets, so maybe a little bit lower for them, but still, it's something they have to pay back because they already used that money. And secondly, they won't get a 500K because they use them in investment property. That means we need to prorate that. So that's another math they got wrong. But what I was thinking is that, hey, let's put that aside for a second. We can come up with some creative strategies to deal with the tax problem. But more importantly, you still got another 20, 30 years of life. You don't want to live in a property that you don't like. I we need to really find your property that you can actually enjoy. So maybe you want a single family home that is all on ground floor. So maybe that's what you want. They're like, absolutely, we need to. That's what we need. So I'm like, well, if you don't want to, why not consider getting a smaller home and move into that? That is, just all in one floor. Maybe it doesn't have to be 3,000 square foot. Maybe it's 1,000 square foot or 1,500 square foot. And again, you can, if you don't want to take any debt, you can buy it just cash as it is, and then your kids can inherit that property. So that works out very well. So they like that strategy. I think that made their day because now they have a place that they will actually love, and it works out better for math, and they will end up with some cash in their pocket as well, which they can put back into their retirement fund if they need to, or do something else with it. So that's that. But I said, you know what? Do me a favor and let me take a look at how these properties are deeded to you. And when we start talking about it, I realized that all the properties were deeded to these people under their own name, husband and wife. And that creates a problem. That means all this real estate, all these assets, they will actually have to go to a probate. And when I had that discussion with the client, they go like, "Oh no, my attorney told me that probate is simple, easy. You don't have to worry about it. They just created a will, and that's good enough." Well, first of all, that's not correct. It is easy if your assets are below certain threshold, then you can get away with it, depending upon what state you are in. So you want to find out what that threshold is. Anything above that threshold, you do have to go to probate. So first of all, that will was created like 15 years ago. So I'm like, I don't know what your situation was 15 years ago. Maybe attorney thought that you just don't have that much assets. Maybe you did not have that much equity. Maybe you didn't have that much savings in your stock market at that time. And attorney probably thought that it's okay. The client was in state of Texas. In state of Texas, I think the limit is up to $75,000. If you have assets below $75,000, you can easily avoid going through the whole probate process. Maybe at that time they had those assets below $75,000. But today these assets are in millions of dollars. I'm like, there's no way you're going to avoid the probate. That's going to be a very expensive mistake. And I showed them how that math works, how the probate works, what's going to cost them. I'm like, solution is simple. Let's get you a proper estate plan done. It usually costs less than $2,000, and you don't have to worry about it again. Just do it one time and you'll be done with it. So that was an eye opener for them as well. They didn't know that was going on with their life. So now that we had all the pieces in place, now we understand what they need to do with insurance, what they need to do with their real estate. We had the whole picture. So okay, let's take a look at your tax returns. And when we looked at the tax return, we noticed that they were not optimized to use all the things that were available, all the deductions that were available to them as a real estate owner. I mean, they had this one property being rented out for so long, and there were so many other expenses they can actually write off to manage that property, which they were not writing it off for so many years. And that's obviously a big problem. And then we also looked at their mortgages, although they were almost gone at this point. They had almost paid off, just a little bit left. But there were a lot of efficient strategies they could have done a few years ago that could have dramatically saved them on lots of money. Then we also, start talking about their grandkids, what they want to do with them, how would they like to transfer some of the wealth to them. We talk about some of those strategies. So overall, we were able to find a lot of money that can save them almost 50, $60,000 in 1 year. So you can see like these little things kind of add up when you put them together. One comprehensive consult, and you can find so many opportunities. And we don't have any product to sell you. We don't ask you to buy some course or buy this or buy that. It's just pure making you more efficient. So I thought maybe it's a good idea to share that example with you so you kind of get an idea as to what we do in our comprehensive calls. So you kind of get a little taste of that. But each customer is a little bit different. We do it a little differently. I had another story today about a lady who wants to do a home-based childcare center. Maybe I should split that into two videos and kind of share that update with you as well. It was a very interesting story because the husband works in IT, wife is stay at home, and she was inspired by watching one of my videos. Go like, hey Deepak, I want to actually set up this whole childcare. Not bad. I'm not doing anything at home, and we talked about some of the interesting things that she should, you know, think about, not just about the business, but there are some other aspects. And that was a very interesting conversation. So I'll share some of the things we talked about today. And hopefully one day, if this channel grows and there's enough interest out there, then maybe we can ask people to come live and we can do this live for you guys. But my name is Deepak and I'm a tax code advisor. If you want to talk about your education planning, your retirement planning, your tax planning, your planning on building something big with your real estate or with your business, and you want somebody to kind of give you an idea as to how you can make it bigger, how you can avoid some of the mistakes, then I'm your guy. I can share all the knowledge that I have gathered over the last 30 years, doing different kind of businesses, doing real estate projects, talking to so many clients out there, so many stories I have. When people talk to me, the one of the common response I get, hey, Deepak, we can talk for hours. And yes, we can, because finance is indeed a very fun field. But I make these videos at the end of the day from my experience that I get throughout the day and I'm talking to people, and then I kind of put my notes together. It helps me remember what happened today. And this is the fastest way to make a video. It takes me about an hour at the end of the day, and I share it with you guys. So if you like it, you don't like it, if you want me to add some more information, you have some suggestions how I can make it better, please don't hesitate to share those with me. Many of you guys who know me personally, I do a lot of seminars, a lot of webinars, so you're welcome to join. One of my next live seminar going to be a Belt Summit, be happening in California at the Oasis Palace. So we have taken the entire Oasis Palace, a big facility. I think it can accommodate up to 2,000 guests altogether, if I remember correctly. But anyhow, we are taking like all four big halls. It's going to be on November 10th. It's a Sunday. It's a 12-hour event from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And whole day long, we're going to be talking about tax strategies, finance strategies, estate planning strategies, all kind of stuff. If you want to sign up for those, just reach out to me and I'll be happy to send you the link to register for that seminar as well. And I'll put it below the video description as well. So that's another way you can find it. If you have any comments for me, please definitely put those there as well. And if you want to discuss your personal situation, then reach out to me. Thank you so much. Share it with your friends. Subscribe so that way you get all the new updates. But most importantly, be my coach. Tell me what am I doing wrong? How can I make it better? How can I improve? I want to learn from you. Thank you.